Kate Morrison pressed her face against the cold metal window of the space station and stared into the darkness beyond. She could not see it with her eyes, but she knew it was there. The invisible wall that kept all of humanity trapped inside. Their own solar system like animals in a cage. For 200 years, no human ship had been able to leave. No human had seen what lay beyond the stars that seemed so close yet remained forever out of reach. The monitoring station, Aurora's Edge, floated at the very edge of everything humans knew. Kate had been stationed here for 3 years, watching and waiting for something to change. She was a lieutenant commander in Earth's Deep Space Navy, but what good was a navy that could never leave home waters? Her job was to study the energy readings that came from the barrier, to understand the technology that imprisoned them all. Every day she sat at her console and watched the same patterns dance across her screens. Energy spikes that made no sense. Power levels that should have been impossible. The aliens who built this prison were far beyond anything humans could imagine. Kate often wondered what they looked like, these creatures who had decided that humanity was too dangerous to join the rest of the galaxy. Amy Rodriguez walked over and set a cup of coffee next to Kate's keyboard. Amy handled all communications for the station, though there was rarely anyone to talk to except other human ships and bases. She was small and quick with dark hair that never seemed to stay where she put it. Like Kate, she had volunteered for this assignment, hoping to be the first to make contact when the barrier finally came down. "Any changes today?" Amy asked, as she sipped her own coffee. Kate shook her head. "Same as always. The readings are steady. Whatever keeps us locked up is working perfectly." She pulled up a display that showed the energy patterns from the past week. "Look at this. The power levels never change by more than 0.01%. Human technology could never be that stable." Beth Collins appeared from the engineering section, wiping grease from her hands with an old rag. She was the one who kept all their equipment running in the harsh environment at the edge of space. Beth was taller than the other 2 women, with blonde hair she kept tied back in a practical ponytail. She had joined the Deep Space Navy because she loved machines and wanted to work on the most advanced technology humanity had to offer. "I've been thinking about those energy readings," Beth said as she joined them at the viewing window. "What if the barrier isn't just keeping us in? What if it's keeping something else out?" Kate turned to look at her friend. "What do you mean?" "Well, think about it. If you wanted to protect the galaxy from humans, why would you need such a powerful barrier? Our ships aren't that advanced. A simple force field should be enough to stop us. But this thing," Beth gestured toward the invisible wall. "This is massive. It's like they're protecting themselves from something much more dangerous than us." Amy frowned. "Are you saying they're afraid of us?" "Maybe. Or maybe they're afraid of what we might become." Before Kate could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as the computer announced an incoming priority transmission. The 3 women rushed to their stations as data flooded across their screens. "It's the new Horizon," Amy called out as she worked her communications console. "Captain Lisa Grant is requesting immediate assistance." Kate felt her heart racing. The New Horizon was an exploration vessel that had been testing the barrier for months, looking for weak points or ways to send messages through to the other side. Captain Grant was known for taking risks that other commanders would never consider. "Put her through," Kate ordered. Lisa Grant's face appeared on the main screen. She was older than Kate, with gray streaks in her brown hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of years spent staring into the unknown. Behind her, Kate could see the bridge of her ship with crew members working frantically at their stations. "Aurora's Edge, we've found something," Lisa said without any greeting. "There's a fluctuation in the barrier about 50,000 kilometers from your position. We're moving to investigate." Kate felt a chill run down her spine. "Captain, you know the protocols. Any attempt to breach the barrier results in immediate destruction. The automated defenses will target your ship." "I understand the risks," Lisa replied. "But this is our chance to finally learn something about our prison. The energy levels are dropping in a small section. If we're careful, we might be able to get close enough to scan the barrier's inner structure." "Captain, I strongly advise against this course of action," Kate said, but she could see the determination in Lisa's eyes. The woman had made up her mind. "I'm sorry, Kate, but I can't pass this up. If something happens to us, make sure Earth knows what we found." The transmission ended. Kate turned to Amy. Track their position and monitor all communications. Beth, I want full sensor sweeps of the barrier fluctuation zone. For the next 2 hours, they watched as the New Horizon slowly approached. The section of barrier where the energy readings were different from normal. Captain Grant was careful, moving her ship at minimum speed and constantly scanning for any sign of defensive systems activating. They're almost at the barrier, Amy reported. Still no response from the automated defenses. Kate held her breath as she watched the New Horizon's position indicator creep closer to the invisible wall that had held humanity captive for 2 centuries. Maybe Beth was right. Maybe the aliens were more afraid of humans than humans were of them. Then everything changed in an instant. The space around the New Horizon erupted in brilliant white light as energy weapons materialized from nowhere and began firing. The ship's shields flared and failed within seconds. Kate watched in horror as the vessel she had been talking to, just hours before, was torn apart by weapons that seemed to come from empty space itself. "New Horizon, respond!" Amy called into her microphone, but there was no answer. Where Captain Grant's ship had been, only debris remained. Kate stared at the wreckage floating in the darkness and felt the weight of humanity's isolation settle on her shoulders once again. They were truly alone, surrounded by forces they could not understand or fight. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that Beth might be right. The beings who had built this prison had used tremendous power to destroy one small exploration ship. That seemed like the action of creatures who were very afraid indeed. On the other side of the barrier, Commander Lyrelai Star Whisper stood on the bridge of her patrol ship watching the destruction of the human vessel through her advanced sensors. Her silver hair moved gently in the artificial breeze that flowed through the Etherian ship, and her luminescent blue eyes reflected the light from the weapons fire that had just ended another human life. Lyrelai was tall and graceful like all of her people, with pointed ears and skin that seemed to glow with an inner light. She had spent 40 years patrolling the quarantine zone, watching to make sure no human ship escaped into the galaxy. In all that time, she had never questioned her orders or wondered about the beings trapped on the other side of the barrier. "The threat has been eliminated," reported Zara Vex from the tactical station. Zara was a Zephyrian, with purple skin and cybernetic implants that enhanced her already impressive abilities. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology and military precision. Unlike the peaceful Etherians, the Zephyrians had no problem using force when needed. "How many humans were aboard that vessel?" Lyrelai asked quietly. Zara checked her instruments. Sensor readings indicate approximately 40 life forms before destruction, all confirmed terminated. Lyrelai nodded, but said nothing. 40 more humans dead for the crime of curiosity. She tried to push the thought away as she had done countless times before. The humans were dangerous. The Galactic Confederation had made that clear. They were violent and unpredictable, likely to start wars with any species they encountered. The quarantine was necessary to protect civilized beings throughout the galaxy. "Commander," called Lieutenant Kira Moonbeam from the communications station. "I'm detecting unusual transmissions from the human monitoring station. Should I block them?" "What kind of transmissions?" Lyrelai asked. "They appear to be scientific data about the barrier fluctuations. The humans are trying to understand what happened to their ship." Lyrelai walked over to Kira's station and looked at the intercepted data scrolling across the screen. The information was detailed and precise, showing careful measurements of energy levels and barrier stability. She had expected to see military, intelligence, or weapons data, but this looked like pure scientific research. "Are they trying to find weak points in the barrier?" Zara asked as she joined them. "I don't think so," Lyrelai said slowly. "This looks like they're just trying to understand how it works. Look at these calculations. They're studying the quantum field harmonics with remarkable accuracy for such a primitive species." Zara frowned. "You sound impressed, Commander." Lyrelai realized she had spoken without thinking. "I'm merely observing their technical capabilities. Know your enemy and all that." But even as she said the words, Lyrelai found herself wondering if the humans were really enemies at all. She had been monitoring their transmissions for decades, and while she couldn't understand their languages, the mathematical formulas and scientific data told their own story. These people were curious about the universe around them. They wanted to learn and explore. 3 days later, a massive solar flare erupted from the human star system. The wave of radiation and charged particles struck the quarantine barrier with tremendous force, causing fluctuations throughout the energy field. Alarms sounded on Lyralay's ship as the barrier's power levels began to fluctuate wildly. "Barrier integrity is at 60% and falling," Zara reported from her station. "Multiple weak points are forming across the containment field." Lyralay felt her heart rate increase. If the barrier failed completely, human ships would be free to enter galactic space for the first time in 2 centuries. The Confederation had strict orders for such a situation. Any human vessel that escaped was to be destroyed immediately. "All ships." "This is Commander Starwhisper," she broadcast to the patrol fleet under her command. "Barrier containment is compromised. Maintain defensive positions around all weak points. Any human ship attempting to breach the quarantine zone is to be disabled or destroyed." For several hours they waited as the barrier slowly stabilized. Most of the weak points sealed themselves as the energy field adapted to the solar interference. But 3 small gaps remained open, creating temporary holes in humanity's prison. "Commander," Kira called from her station, "I'm detecting a small human vessel approaching weak point Alpha. The ship appears to be heavily modified for stealth operations." Lyralay moved to the main viewer and watched as a sleek human ship approached. The gap in the barrier. The vessel was much smaller than the exploration ship they had destroyed days earlier, probably carrying no more than 5 or 6 crew members. As she watched, the ship slipped through the opening and began moving cautiously into galactic space. "Shall I destroy it?" Zara asked, her hand hovering over the weapons controls. Lyralay hesitated. Standard protocol was clear, but something made her hold back. "Not yet. Let's observe their behavior first. I want to see what they do when they think they're undetected." Zara looked surprised. "Commander, our orders are explicit. Any breach of the quarantine must be stopped immediately." "Our orders are to protect the galaxy from human aggression," Lyralay corrected. "To do that effectively, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Track that ship, but maintain stealth. I want to know what the humans do with their first taste of freedom in 200 years. The human stealth ship moved slowly through space, its sensors scanning everything around it. Lyralay's advanced instruments tracked its every movement while remaining invisible to human technology. She expected the vessel to head immediately for the nearest inhabited system, or perhaps begin searching for ships to attack. Instead, the humans did something that surprised her. They found a damaged cargo vessel that had been drifting in space for weeks after suffering engine failure. The alien crew had abandoned ship, but some cargo remained aboard. Rather than looting the vessel or claiming it as salvage, the human ship began broadcasting distress signals on multiple frequencies, trying to alert rescue services to the derelict's location. "They're not taking anything," Kira observed with amazement. "They're trying to help." Lyralay watched in fascination as the human ship spent 3 hours documenting the cargo vessel's condition and broadcasting its location to anyone who might respond. When they detected a Galactic Rescue Service ship approaching from a nearby system, the humans quickly retreated toward the barrier gap rather than risk contact. "This doesn't match our intelligence reports," Zara said quietly. "The humans were supposed to be violent and aggressive." Lyralay said nothing, but her mind was racing. Everything she had been told about human nature seemed to be wrong. These people had found an opportunity to take whatever they wanted from an abandoned ship, but instead they had tried to ensure it was properly recovered by its rightful owners. As the human stealth ship prepared to return through the barrier gap, Lyralay made a decision that would change everything. Instead of destroying the vessel, she opened a communication channel on a frequency she knew the humans were monitoring. "Human vessel, this is Etherian Commander Lyralay Starwhisper of the Galactic Confederation Patrol Fleet. I wish to speak with your commanding officer." The human ship stopped moving. For long moments, there was only silence on the communication channel. Then a woman's voice responded, speaking in the universal trade language that most spacefaring species understood. "This is Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison of the Earth Deep Space Navy. I assume you're here to destroy us." "That remains to be seen," Lyralay replied. "Your actions today were unexpected. I would like to understand why you helped the damaged vessel instead of claiming it as salvage." There was another long pause before Kate responded. "Because it was the right thing to do. Just because we're trapped in our own system doesn't mean we've forgotten how to help others." Lorelei felt something shift inside her chest as she heard those words. For the first time in 40 years of service, she began to question everything she thought she knew about humanity and the necessity of keeping them locked away from the stars. Kate Morrison sat in the pilot's seat of the stealth ship Whisper, staring at the communication display that still showed an active connection to the alien vessel. Her hands were shaking slightly as she tried to process what had just happened. After 200 years of silence, an alien had spoken to her. Not with weapons or threats, but with actual words. "Kate, are you sure about this?" Amy Rodriguez asked from the communication station behind her. Amy had volunteered for this dangerous mission along with Beth Collins, who was monitoring their stealth systems from the engineering console. "No. I'm not sure about anything," Kate admitted. "But this might be our only chance to learn something about the people who've kept us trapped for so long." The alien commander had asked to continue their conversation, but not over open radio where other ships might intercept their words. Instead, she had suggested a meeting at a small asteroid located halfway between their current positions. Kate knew it was probably a trap, but the chance to finally speak face-to-face with one of their captors was too important to ignore. "If this goes wrong, we're all dead," Beth said bluntly as she checked their stealth field generators. "And Earth will never know what happened to us." Kate activated the ship's engines and began moving toward the designated meeting point. "If we don't try, humanity will stay locked up forever. Sometimes you have to take risks to change things." On the other side of space, Lorelei Star Whisper was having similar doubts about her decision. She stood in her private quarters aboard the patrol ship, looking at herself in the mirror as she prepared for the most dangerous meeting of her long career. If the Galactic Confederation discovered what she was doing, she would face court-martial and imprisonment. Zara Vex knocked on her door and entered without waiting for permission. The purple-skinned Zephyrian looked worried as she approached her commander. "Lorelei, this is madness," Zara said, using her friend's first name instead of her rank. "If the humans capture you, they could learn everything about our defenses. If the Confederation finds out about this meeting, we'll both be arrested for treason." "I know the risks," Lorelei replied as she checked her sidearm and activated her personal shield generator. "But I have to know the truth about these humans. Everything we've been told about them might be wrong." Zara shook her head. "Even if they're not as dangerous as we believed, that doesn't make this meeting any less risky. Let me come with you as backup." "No. If something goes wrong, I need you to maintain the official story that the humans escaped back through the barrier gap. One of us needs to stay clean in case this all goes bad." 2 hours later, Kate maneuvered the Whisper alongside a small asteroid that tumbled slowly through empty space. The rock was barely large enough to support a temporary atmosphere dome, but it would provide neutral ground for their unprecedented meeting. As she watched through the ship's sensors, an elegant alien vessel approached from the opposite direction. "The alien ship is beautiful," Amy observed as they studied the approaching craft. Unlike human vessels which were built for function over form, the alien ship looked like a work of art. Its hull curved gracefully through space, with what appeared to be living crystal formations growing along its sides. Kate put on her environmental suit and checked her equipment one final time. She carried no weapons except for a small emergency pistol, hoping to show that she came in peace. The asteroid's gravity was weak, but sufficient to keep her feet on the ground as she activated a portable atmosphere generator. Lorelei's ship landed on the opposite side of the asteroid, and Kate watched through her helmet camera as a tall figure in a shimmering environmental suit approached the meeting point. When the alien woman came close enough to see clearly, Kate felt her breath catch in her throat. Even through the environmental suit, it was obvious that the alien was incredibly beautiful. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible in the low gravity, and when she activated her own atmosphere generator, Kate could see her face through the helmet's faceplate. The woman had silver hair that seemed to glow with its own light, pointed ears like something from ancient human mythology, and blue eyes that sparkled like stars. "I am Commander Lorelei Star Whisper of the Etherian Fleet," the alien woman said, as they approached each other across the barren surface of the asteroid. Her voice was musical, with an accent that Kate had never heard before. "Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison, Earth Deep Space Navy," Kate replied, unsure of the proper protocol for meeting beings from another world. "Thank you for agreeing to talk instead of shooting first." Lorelei tilted her head slightly. Your actions today suggested that shooting might not be necessary. Tell me, Kate Morrison, why did your people help that damaged cargo vessel instead of taking what you could from it? Kate considered her answer carefully. Everything she said here might determine the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy beyond their prison, because taking things that don't belong to you is wrong. We may be trapped in our own system, but we haven't forgotten the difference between right and wrong. But your people are supposed to be violent and aggressive, Lyreley said. The Galactic Confederation has maintained the quarantine because humans are considered too dangerous for civilized space. Dangerous to who? Kate asked. We've never had the chance to prove ourselves one way or the other. Your people decided we were dangerous based on our first contact 200 years ago, and you've never given us a chance to show that we might have changed. Lyreley was quiet for a long moment as she considered Kate's words. What happened during that first contact was indeed violent. Human ships attacked our exploration vessels without provocation. And what were your exploration vessels doing in our system? Kate asked. From our historical records, it sounds like your people showed up in human space without any attempt at communication and began scanning our worlds. To us, it looked like the beginning of an invasion. We were conducting routine surveys of the SAS system, Lyreley said, but her voice carried less certainty than before. Standard exploration protocols. Without announcing yourselves or asking permission to be there, Kate pressed. If unknown ships appeared in your home system and began scanning your worlds, how would your people react? Lyreley's eyes widened as she considered the question. For the first time, she was seeing the original conflict from the human perspective. A species that had just developed space travel suddenly finding their home system full of alien ships conducting mysterious scans. From that viewpoint, the human response seemed less like unprovoked aggression and more like desperate self-defense. I had never considered it from that perspective, Lyreley admitted quietly. Neither had your leaders, apparently, Kate said. They decided we were too dangerous to live free, and they've kept us locked up ever since. But we're not the same people we were 200 years ago. We've grown and learned and changed. We've developed art and science and philosophy. We've solved problems like war and poverty and disease. We're not the frightened, isolated species that attacked your ships in panic. How can I know that's true? Lyreley asked. How can I know you're not just telling me what you think I want to hear? Kate thought for a moment, then began describing life on Earth and the human colonies throughout their solar system. She talked about the great universities where human scholars studied everything from quantum physics to ancient poetry. She described the medical advances that had eliminated most diseases and the social progress that had ended war between human nations. As Kate spoke, Lyreley found herself drawn into the stories of human achievement and growth. These people sounded nothing like the violent savages described in Galactic Confederation reports. They sounded like a species that had overcome their primitive instincts and developed into something worth knowing. If what you're telling me is true, Lyreley said finally, then the quarantine might be a terrible mistake. It is a mistake, Kate said firmly, and it's one that's hurt both our species. Humanity has been denied the chance to learn from the galaxy, and the galaxy has been denied everything we might have contributed. How many problems could we have solved together? How much knowledge could we have shared? Lyreley felt the weight of 2 centuries of isolation settling on her shoulders. If Kate was right, then she had spent her entire career helping to perpetuate an injustice that served no one. But changing things would be incredibly difficult and dangerous for both of them. What do you propose we do about this situation? Lyreley asked. Kate looked up at the stars visible beyond the asteroid's thin atmosphere. I propose we work together to show both our peoples that cooperation is possible. It won't be easy and it won't be safe, but it's the right thing to do. As they stood together on that small rock floating in empty space, 2 women from different worlds reached an understanding that would change the galaxy forever. 3 weeks after her secret meeting with Kate Morrison, Lyreley Starwhisper stood in chains before the Galactic Confederation High Court. Her silver hair hung loose around her shoulders, and her usually glowing skin looked pale under the harsh lights of the courtroom. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the Great Hall, all watching as she faced charges of treason and violation of quarantine protocols. General Thaxara Voidheart stood at the prosecutor's podium, her dark blue skin marked with the ritual scars that showed her high rank among the Zephyrian military. She was known throughout the galaxy as a fierce warrior who believed that only strength could maintain galactic peace. "Members of the court," General Voidheart began in her harsh voice, "the defendant has violated the most sacred law of our Confederation. She made unauthorized contact with the quarantined human species, potentially exposing all civilized worlds to their violent influence." Lirelai kept her face calm as she listened to the charges against her. A spy within her own crew had reported the meeting with Kate, though they had not been able to record any of the conversation. Now she faced life imprisonment on a penal colony far from her home world. Meanwhile, on Earth, Kate Morrison sat in a secure briefing room deep beneath the surface of the planet. Admiral Helen Cross, the commanding officer of Earth's deep space, Navy, paced back and forth as she listened to Kate's report about the meeting with the alien commander. "You did what?" Admiral Cross said, stopping to stare at Kate with a mixture of anger and amazement. Admiral Cross was older than Kate, with gray hair and stern features earned through decades of military service. She had joined the Navy as a young woman just after the quarantine began and had spent her entire career preparing for a war that might never come. "I met with an alien commander to discuss the possibility of peaceful contact," Kate repeated calmly. "Admiral, this could be our chance to finally end the quarantine. Or it could be a trap designed to gather intelligence about our defenses," Admiral Cross replied. "Kate, I understand your frustration with our situation, but you've potentially compromised the security of our entire species." Dr. Maya Patel looked up from the datapad she had been studying and cleared her throat. Dr. Patel was Earth's leading expert on alien biology and technology, despite having never met an actual alien until now. She was a small woman with dark skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. "Admiral, if I may," Dr. Patel said politely. "The information Kate gathered during this meeting is extraordinary. The alien she spoke with provided details about galactic civilization that we've been trying to understand for 2 centuries. Admiral Cross frowned. "What kind of details?" "The aliens have been monitoring our communications and scientific progress," Kate explained. "They know that we've eliminated war between human nations and developed advanced medical technology. The commander I spoke with seemed genuinely surprised by our peaceful behavior. That could be useful intelligence if it's accurate," Admiral Cross admitted reluctantly. "But it doesn't change the fact that you violated direct orders and potentially exposed us to enemy infiltration." "With respect, Admiral," Kate said firmly, "they're not enemies. They're prison guards who've been told the wrong information about the prisoners they're watching. If we can prove that humans have changed since the original conflict, we might be able to convince them to lower the barrier." On the other side of the galaxy, Lirelai's trial continued as witness after witness testified about the dangers of human contact. Scientists presented data about human aggression levels, military officers described potential human weapons capabilities, and political leaders spoke about the chaos that would result if humans were allowed into galactic space. But when Zara Vex took the witness stand, everything changed. "Lieutenant Commander Vex," General Voidheart said as she approached the witness podium, "you were present during the defendant's unauthorized contact with human forces. Please describe what you observed." Zara looked directly at Lirelai before answering. "I observed humans helping a damaged alien vessel instead of looting it for technology or supplies. I observed them attempting to ensure the cargo was properly recovered by its rightful owners." General Voidheart's expression darkened. "That's not what I asked you to describe." "It's what happened," Zara said firmly. "I also reviewed historical records of the original human-alien conflict, and I found significant discrepancies in our reports." The courtroom erupted in surprised murmurs as Zara continued speaking. "The original human attack on our exploration vessels occurred after our ships had been conducting unauthorized scans of human worlds for several days. From the human perspective, we appeared to be preparing for an invasion." "That's enough," General Voidheart snapped. "You're here to testify about the defendant's crimes, not to rewrite history." "The history might already be wrong," Zara replied. "If our entire justification for the quarantine is based on a misunderstanding, then maintaining it is the real crime." Chief Justice Valorian, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Galactic Confederation, raised one hand for silence. His voice carried the weight of centuries when he spoke. These are serious accusations, Lieutenant Commander Vex. Do you have evidence to support your claims about the historical record? Zara activated a holographic display that showed documents and communication logs from 200 years ago. I found these in the deep archives. Our exploration ships were operating under Protocol 7, which authorizes detailed scanning of all planetary surfaces and orbital installations. From a human perspective, this would have appeared to be preparation for military action. The evidence Zara presented painted a very different picture of the original conflict. Rather than an unprovoked human attack, it showed a tragic misunderstanding between two species who had no way to communicate with each other. Back on Earth, Kate worked with Dr. Patel to prepare humanity's case for joining galactic civilization. They gathered examples of human art, science, and culture to show that the species had evolved beyond its violent past. "Look at this," Dr. Patel said as she reviewed medical data from Earth's hospitals. "Human life expectancy has increased by 40 years since the quarantine began. Crime rates have dropped to almost zero. We've eliminated poverty and developed sustainable energy sources that don't damage the environment." Kate nodded as she compiled scientific papers published by human researchers. "We've made breakthroughs in quantum physics, biological engineering, and computer science. Some of these discoveries could benefit every species in the galaxy." Admiral Cross reviewed their work with growing amazement. "If half of this is accurate, we're not the same species that attacked those alien ships 2 centuries ago." "That's exactly the point," Kate said. "We've grown and changed and learned from our mistakes. We deserve a chance to prove ourselves to the galaxy." As Lyra Lee's trial continued, more evidence emerged that contradicted the official story about human aggression. Historical documents showed that the original conflict had been brief and limited, ending as soon as both sides realized they were fighting over a misunderstanding. But by then, fear had taken hold in the galactic government, and the decision was made to quarantine humanity permanently. Chief Justice Valorian studied the evidence for 3 days before announcing his decision. "This court finds that while Commander Star Whisper did violate quarantine protocols, the evidence suggests that those protocols may themselves be based on incorrect information." The courtroom fell silent as the ancient judge continued speaking. "I am ordering a full review of the human quarantine to be conducted by a joint commission of military officers, scientists, and political leaders. Until that review is complete, the quarantine will remain in effect, but no punitive action will be taken against humans who attempt peaceful contact." Lyra Lee felt relief wash over her as the chains were removed from her wrists. She had avoided imprisonment, but more importantly, she had opened the door for humanity to finally prove itself to the galaxy. On Earth, Kate received word of the trial's outcome through the same secret communication channel she had used to speak with Lyra Lee. The message was brief, but filled with hope. "The door is opening," Lyra Lee's voice said through the static. "Now we must work together to make sure it stays that way." 6 months after Lyra Lee's trial, Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth's first official diplomatic vessel as it approached the edge of the solar system. The ship was called the Ambassador, and it carried representatives from every human, nation, and colony. Kate had been chosen to lead the mission because of her unique experience with alien contact. Dr. Maya Patel worked at a nearby console, preparing the cultural and scientific data they would present to the Galactic Confederation. She had spent months compiling evidence of human progress and achievement, hoping to convince the galaxy that humanity deserved a place among the stars. "The barrier is still active," reported Amy Rodriguez from the communications station. Amy had volunteered for this historic mission, bringing her expertise in alien languages and protocols. Kate nodded as she watched the invisible wall that had trapped humanity for so long. "According to Commander Star Whisper, they'll lower a section of the barrier when we're ready to proceed." As if summoned by her words, Lyra Lee's voice came through the communication system. The Etherian commander had been appointed as humanity's official liaison, despite the controversy her trial had caused within the galactic government. "Ambassador Morrison, this is Commander Star Whisper. The Galactic Council is prepared to receive your delegation. Are you ready to make history?" Kate felt her heart racing as she replied, "We've been ready for 200 years, Commander. Let's do this." The barrier flickered, and a section disappeared, creating an opening large enough for the ambassador to pass through. As the human ship crossed into galactic space for the first time since the quarantine began, Kate felt the weight of her entire species' future on her shoulders. Lyrelai's ship waited just beyond the barrier, along with vessels from a dozen other alien species. The sight of so many different ships working together filled Kate with hope about what humanity might achieve as part of the galactic community. "Welcome to free space," Lyrelai said, as the two ships moved together toward the galactic capital. "I should warn you that not everyone is happy about this decision. General Voidheart and her supporters are still trying to maintain the quarantine." "We expected resistance," Kate replied. "Change is never easy, especially when it challenges beliefs people have held for centuries." The journey to the galactic capital took 3 days, giving Kate and her team time to observe the incredible diversity of alien civilizations. They passed massive space stations where dozens of species worked together, saw ships that looked like living creatures flying alongside vessels made of pure crystal, and witnessed technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. Dr. Patel spent hours analyzing the sensor data they collected, marveling at the scientific achievements of species that had been working together for thousands of years. "Kate, some of these technologies could solve every remaining problem humanity faces. Clean energy, faster-than-light travel, medical treatments that could extend human life indefinitely. And we might have solutions to problems they haven't thought of," Kate replied. "That's what cooperation means. Everyone benefits when people work together." When they finally reached the galactic capital, Kate was amazed by what she saw. The city floated in space without any visible means of support, its buildings stretching in all directions like a three-dimensional maze. Ships from hundreds of different species moved through traffic patterns that seemed impossibly complex, but somehow worked perfectly. The Galactic Council chamber was even more impressive. Representatives from thousands of species sat in seats designed for their unique physiologies, while holographic displays showed real-time translations of the dozens of languages being spoken simultaneously. Chief Justice Valorian called the session to order with a gesture that somehow commanded attention from every being in the vast chamber. "We are here to consider the petition of the human species for membership in the Galactic Confederation. The petitioners will present their case first." Kate walked to the speaker's podium, acutely aware that she was the first human to address the galactic government in over 2 centuries. Her voice was steady as she began to speak. "Honorable representatives, my name is Kate Morrison, and I speak for all of humanity. We come before you not as the frightened, isolated species that attacked your ships 200 years ago, but as a people who have learned from their mistakes and grown beyond their primitive instincts." She activated the holographic display that Dr. Patel had prepared, showing images of Earth and the human colonies. "In the time since the quarantine began, we have eliminated war between human nations, solved the problems of poverty and disease, and developed technologies that could benefit every species in this chamber. The display showed human cities powered by clean fusion energy, hospitals where genetic diseases were cured before birth, and research stations where scientists worked to understand the fundamental nature of the universe." Kate watched as alien representatives leaned forward in their seats, clearly impressed by what they were seeing. "We offer our friendship to all peaceful species," Kate continued. "We bring scientific discoveries, cultural achievements, and a perspective shaped by our unique history. We ask only for the chance to prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars." General Voidheart rose from her seat as Kate finished speaking. The Zephyrian military leader's scarred face showed obvious disapproval as she approached the speaker's podium. "Words are easy," General Voidheart said harshly. "The humans show us pictures and make promises, but how can we trust a species that attacked without provocation? How do we know they won't revert to their violent nature once they have access to galactic technology?" Before Kate could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the council chamber. Emergency communications flooded the central display as reports came in from across the galaxy. "Unknown vessels attacking civilian transports in the Vega sector," announced an automated voice. "All available ships respond immediately." Chief Justice Valorian turned to General Voidheart. "General, deploy your forces to investigate this attack." But Kate was already moving toward the communication console. "Commander Starwhisper, what's the situation?" 3 civilian ships under attack by vessels of unknown design, Lorelei replied. The attackers are using weapons technology we've never seen before. My ships are too far away to respond in time. Kate made a decision that would determine humanity's future. Dr. Patel, how long would it take to modify the Ambassador's engines for maximum speed? 20 minutes if we bypass the safety systems, Maya replied quickly. Do it, Kate ordered. Amy, send a message to Earth. Tell them to prepare every available ship for emergency deployment. General Voidheart stared at Kate in amazement. You want to risk human lives to save aliens you've never met. We want to help because it's the right thing to do, Kate replied firmly. That's what being part of a community means. Within an hour, a dozen human ships had passed through the barrier and were racing toward the attack site. The Ambassador led the formation, its engines pushed beyond their design limits, as Kate pushed them to arrive before the civilian ships were destroyed. The battle was brief, but intense. The unknown attackers fought with desperate fury, using weapons that could punch through any known shield technology. But they hadn't expected to face human tactics developed during centuries of isolation. Kate coordinated the human ships with precision that amazed the alien observers watching from the galactic capital. Human vessels used their smaller size and superior maneuverability to confuse the attackers, while larger alien ships provided heavy firepower support. Target their weapons systems, Kate ordered as the Ambassador dove beneath an enemy ship. Disable them if possible, but protect the civilians. The battle ended when Beth Collins, now serving as the Ambassador's chief engineer, managed to hack into the enemy ship's computer systems and shut down their engines. The attackers were captured alive, revealing them to be members of a previously unknown species that had been observing galactic civilization from the edges of known space. As rescue ships arrived to help the damaged civilian vessels, Chief Justice Valorian's voice came through the communication system. Ambassador Morrison, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's petition for membership. Kate felt her hands shaking as she waited for the verdict that would determine her species' future. The actions we have witnessed today demonstrate that humanity has indeed evolved beyond its violent past, the ancient judge continued. The human ships risked their own lives to save alien civilians without hesitation or expectation of reward. This is the behavior of a species worthy of galactic citizenship. Cheers erupted from the human ships as the news spread. After 2 centuries of isolation, humanity was finally free to take its place among the stars. Lyraleigh's voice came through the communication channel, filled with joy and relief. Welcome to the galaxy, Kate Morrison. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Kate looked out at the stars that had been forbidden to her people for so long and smiled. Commander, I think you're absolutely right. As the human ships began their journey back to the galactic capital for the formal induction ceremony, Kate reflected on how much had changed since that day when she first spoke to an alien voice across the void.